we see Nancy Lilquist has her hand up patiently. Thank you.
Hi, thanks. I just want to say how much I appreciate that we still have a local newspaper and what you all do to try and cover local news. I just wasn't sure if folks are aware that we were just notified the City Hall beat is now covered by an employee of the Skagit paper. So the person lives in Skagit Valley and who will be covering city government. And that's kind of part of the larger narrative that y'all are talking about. But I think it's a loss. It's hard to keep up with what's happening if you're not local. So anyway, thanks. I mean, you can listen to the meetings, right? They're all broadcasts, but that's different than knowing the folks in the room.
I'm going to jump in here with a question that might be off kind of out of left field, but a number of local leagues do observer corps where we have league members who are committed to sitting in on a city council meeting, a school board meeting, a library board meeting, and they take notes and they just record what is going on for our membership to know. But given the shortage of reporters in many communities, do you see some potential for, and I know you can't speak for other newspapers, but of local newspapers wanting to have some of that kind of information from leagues? Is that something that the league could provide in some way if it were to fit along a certain standard?
It's a possibility. You know, newspapers have done a lot of different things over the years. You know, we used to have what we called community correspondents. I mean, every paper had them. You know, and that's how they cover their small community parts. You know, like their small towns or they're like in your coverage area. And you know, it's obviously in that time, you know, meeting coverage was your core component. You wouldn't farm that out to somebody. You know, you would have one of your staff members do it. But if you look at the reality of not having that person to do it, then maybe you start to think about in different ways how you get that, you know, and whether you know, I haven't really thought of, you know, whether you would do that, a newspaper would do that. I don't know. I think there's some potential there for kind of thinking outside the box and providing things people need to know in different ways. I guess that's one way to look at it. You know, I don't know if the Seattle Times will be doing that anytime soon, but
Well, it's a generous offer, and I'm sure that every local reporter would appreciate having a relationship with these folks, so that, you know, for ideas, for tips, things like that. And maybe some papers are in a situation where that's all they can do. You know, I know Ellensburg isn't the only place that just has one reporter right now. There was a guy testifying at the hearing last week in Olympia, who's the editor of the paper in Grand Coulee, and his last reporter left. He's the publisher. He's going to city council meetings himself. I don't know. To me, though, it's a little bit like giving. I mean, it's terrible, but it's like giving up. I mean, it's like McDonald's having somebody else bring a hamburger in. You know, I mean, that's kind of that's what they do. So they really need to be doing it themselves. And you know, I guess it's better than nothing. But I think the pressure should be on any local newspapers to continue providing that essential service and covering their local government themselves.
I have one more question here for Mike and Brier, and it's a question that our committee members have been asked. When there's talk about government support for local news operations, how do you rationalize the idea if taxpayer money might be going to support some kind of extreme publications that are, you know, just they're not practicing good journalism? How would you kind of come to terms with that if a news organization were to you know, foster real extreme positions and they were to somehow qualify for taxpayer relief funding, etc.?
Well, I think that's just the nature of the way it is. I think that if we're going to say the government should support the press, the government can't be picking and choosing which press it supports. And, you know, something you find noxious, somebody else might really like, you know. So you know, who's to judge, especially if we're talking about a federal program? It's like tax credits. I mean, you know, who benefits from various tax programs in the United States? There's, you know, we as taxpayers support all manner of organizations that have nonprofit, you know, status. So we're subsidizing them. Some of them, I wish they did other things with, you know, it is what it is. To make it, we have to support all, and hopefully the marketplace will decide. Hopefully you know, if the industry survives and is robust, then that gives people choices of which media they want to consume and support themselves and subscribe to, and hopefully the public will gravitate towards more news organizations that follow standards and are less extreme. So.
I do
One
want
way you can look at like national arts grants, you know, like sometimes they'll do a national arts grants is something people find offensive. But, you know, yeah, I think that you'd always have that risk, but yeah.
I want to point out, Mike, that at least you have clearly one fan in the audience here, that Maureen McKinney wrote, "The Daily Record appears to have appears to be ghosted since you left." That's for sure, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, that was my concern when I left. So, but yeah, it was just a choice I had to make. So.
Okay. Delores, are you back in there, or Charlie? I'm from Clark County, and I don't want to be logging out for Kittitas here.
Right. Yes, this is Charlie. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So since Delores is still having audio issues, I thought I would jump in and thank you, Deanne and Mike Gallagher and Brier Dudley, for appearing here today to discuss this very important issue. We're going to go ahead and wrap up since the questions seem to have tapered off. To remind everybody, we will be putting this recording up on our YouTube channel and sharing links out about it. And when that occurs, I will also put in the description links to the full study and this Saturday's session that will be conducted from the state on this issue, and then links to training our league members to work on consensus for establishing a position on this very important topic. So again, I'd like to thank everyone who appeared here today. And
Charlie, can I just make one more comment?
Yes.
Although I keep going in and out, so I'll have to watch the video in order to see everything that was said. But I just want to make the point that when newspapers become ghost newspapers, and really that's kind of what the Daily Record seems to be now, when they have so few reporters that they cannot cover government agencies, schools, and there is some regular coverage of community activities. And I think when there's a controversy, they will send someone, or they have in the past, sent a reporter in. When that happens, when there's no regular government coverage, then all those impacts that we talk about in the study, that happens. So even though you may think that you are getting all the benefits of having regular coverage, if you have a newspaper that's a ghost newspaper, you're not. You're, you know, when government isn't being watched, and I'm in favor of government employees, I've been a government employee, but when people are not watching the till, you know, things happen. When there's no newspaper to amplify it, not only does it have to be reported on, sometimes even when it's reported on, no action is taken. It takes like a bigger paper taking up the issue and publicizing it. So that is what is so scary. And I've said this before, if you live in Kittitas County, you can see what's happening right in front of you with what's happening with the newspaper, but maybe you can't if you live in the Seattle area. You don't really realize. It's not going to take that much more time before there's almost no news, well, except for sports maybe, being covered in the Daily Record. And it's really a scary thing. For someone who's a regular newspaper reader, it's scary to think that even if there is a big controversy, no one's going to report on it at a certain point. Anyway, so I mean, that's what we want to impress upon people, and that we are going to be publicizing this issue as much as we can. You know, we have been now, and we will, assuming that we get to take or the state league takes establishes a policy position on this. Anyway, yeah, thanks again, everyone, for attending and caring about this issue.
Thank you.